The hegemony of Vareth had ruled the stars for 8,000 years. Their empire stretched across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. They had found over 12,000 species that could travel between stars. Every single one of them had surrendered. Every single one of them now served the hegemony. This was the natural order of things. The strong ruled. The weak obeyed. There was no other way. Archon Salith stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. He was tall and thin, with gray skin and 4 eyes that glowed with soft blue light. He had conquered 11 worlds in his career. He had never lost a battle. He had never even come close to losing. The very idea seemed impossible. His science officer approached with a data tablet. "Archon, we have completed our scan of the target system. The species calls itself humanity. They live on the 3rd planet from their star." Salith took the tablet and studied the information. He felt his mouth curl into what his species used as a smile. These humans were pathetic. They had only recently learned to leave their home world. Their fastest ships could barely reach 1% of light speed. Their weapons were primitive kinetic systems that threw chunks of metal. They had no energy shields, no plasma cannons, no gravity manipulation technology. "How many of them are there?" Salith asked. "Approximately 12 billion on their home world. Another 2 million spread across their system on various stations and colonies." Salith made a sound of dismissal. "They are infants. This will take no time at all." He ordered his communications officer to send the standard message. Every species received the same offer. Surrender your government. Allow genetic cataloging of your population. Accept your place as a tributary species of the hegemony. In return, you will be allowed to continue existing. The humans received the message. Salith expected the usual response: fear, panic, desperate attempts to negotiate, offers of tribute, pleas for mercy. He had seen it all before. Every species reacted the same way when they understood how small they were. The response came after 6 hours. It was not what Salith expected. The message was simple. It came not from a single government, but from something called the United Nations of Earth. It spoke for all of humanity. The words were direct. "We decline your offer. Leave our system immediately. Do not return." Salith read the message 3 times. He could not understand it. These creatures had seen his fleet. They had scanned his ships. They knew what they were facing. And yet they refused? They gave him orders? His second-in-command, a younger officer named Vareth, looked worried. "Archon, this is unusual. Should we proceed with caution?" "Caution?" Salith laughed. The sound echoed across the command deck. "Against animals who throw rocks through space. No, we will teach them what happens to species that refuse the hegemony." He ordered 3 destroyer-class warships to advance toward the human colony on the 4th planet. Mars, the humans called it. A small settlement of 40,000 individuals. The destroyers would reduce it to ash. Then the humans would understand their situation. The 3 destroyers moved forward. Their commanders reported no resistance. The human ships in the area were fleeing. Everything was proceeding exactly as Salith had expected. Then everything changed. The first destroyer simply vanished from his sensors. One moment it was there. The next moment there was nothing but expanding debris. Before Salith could even process what had happened, the second destroyer exploded. Then the third. 4 minutes. That was all it took. 3 warships with crews of 800 each, gone. Destroyed by primitives who threw rocks through space. Salith stood frozen. His crew stared at their screens in silence. No one spoke. No one could find words. What happened? Salith finally managed to ask. His voice was barely a whisper. His sensor officer worked frantically at her console. Her hands were shaking. Archon, I am reviewing the data from the destroyers. Before they were destroyed, their sensors detected multiple contacts emerging from the asteroid belt. Human vessels. They were running completely cold. No heat signatures. No energy emissions. We never saw them until they fired. What kind of weapons? Kinetic accelerators, Archon. Simple railguns. They were firing tungsten projectiles at approximately 15% of light speed. She paused, her four eyes wide with something Salith had never seen in a Varith officer before: fear. The projectiles passed through our shields as if they were not there. Salith felt cold. The hegemony's energy shields were designed to stop energy weapons, plasma, lasers, particle beams. They had never needed to stop solid projectiles moving at such speeds. No species had ever used such primitive weapons effectively. No species had ever tried dot until now. How many human ships? Salith demanded. Unknown, Archon. After firing, they went dark again. They simply disappeared into the asteroid belt. We cannot find them. Salith stared at the display showing the debris field that had been 3 of his warships. He had expected frightened primitives. He had expected easy conquest. Instead, he had found something else entirely. The humans had not panicked. They had not negotiated. They had not begged. They had waited in the darkness with perfect patience. They had calculated their attack with perfect precision. They had struck with perfect accuracy. And then they had vanished. This was not the behavior of frightened animals. This was the behavior of predators. Varith spoke quietly. Archon, what are your orders? Salith did not answer immediately. He was beginning to understand something. The humans had known the hegemony was coming. They had prepared. Those ships hiding in the asteroid belt had been waiting there for days, maybe weeks, running silent in the cold dark. They had planned this. The question was, what else had they planned? We pull back, Salith said finally. We wait for reinforcements. This system requires a full conquest fleet. As his remaining ships retreated to the edge of the human system, Salith composed a message to the Hegemony High Council. He chose his words carefully. He did not want to admit how badly he had underestimated these humans. But he needed them to understand that something was different here. These creatures are dangerous, he wrote. They are not like the others. They were ready for us. They were waiting. Deep in the asteroid belt, Admiral Elena Vasquez watched the alien ships retreat. She allowed herself a small smile. Phase 1 was complete. The enemy had tested their strength and found it greater than expected. Now they would return with more ships, more weapons, more force. That was exactly what humanity was counting on. The hegemony thought they were the hunters. They were about to learn that they were the prey. Admiral Elena Vasquez had been waiting for this moment her entire life. Her grandmother had been one of the first to see the truth. 60 years ago, deep space telescopes had detected something that changed everything. Alien signals. Alien ships. An entire galaxy full of life. But the signals told a terrible story. Species after species crying out for help, then going silent. Empires rising and falling. Conquerors sweeping across the stars. The galaxy was not a peaceful place. It was a hunting ground. And sooner or later, the hunters would come to Earth. The world's governments had made a choice. They could announce the discovery and hope for the best. Or they could stay silent and prepare. They chose silence. They chose preparation. For 60 years, humanity had been getting ready for first contact. Vasquez stood in the command center of the UN's Defiance, buried deep inside a hollowed asteroid. The ship was the flagship of the United Nations Space Command, a military force that officially did not exist. On paper, humanity had a small collection of research vessels and mining ships. The truth was very different. "Admiral, the alien fleet has retreated to the edge of the system," her tactical officer reported. "They are holding position near Neptune's orbit. How long until they receive reinforcements?" "Based on the speed of their ships, we estimate 2 to 3 weeks." Vasquez nodded. That was enough time. She activated her console and sent a single coded message to installations across the solar system. The message contained only one word: awaken. Across the darkness of space, humanity's true strength began to reveal itself. On the surface of Luna, massive doors opened in the gray dust. Defense platforms rose from underground bunkers where they had waited for decades. Each platform carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon dot in the asteroid belt. Mining stations that had spent years pretending to dig for minerals dropped their disguises. Hidden shipyards opened their doors. 200 warships, built in secret over 40 years, powered up their engines for the first time. Around Jupiter's moons, networks of sensors and weapons platforms activated. They had been sleeping inside ice and rock, invisible to any scan. Now they formed a defensive ring around the outer planets, and in the empty space between Mars and Jupiter, the Gladius Array came online. This was humanity's greatest secret: a network of enormous solar collectors, connected to particle accelerators that could focus the sun's energy into a single beam. That beam could cross the entire solar system. It could hit a target the size of a ship from billions of kilometers away. It had taken 30 years to build. It had never been tested at full power until now. It would not need to be. Vasquez reviewed the reports from each installation. Everything was working. 60 years of planning, 60 years of building, 60 years of keeping the greatest secret in human history. It had all led to this moment. Her second-in-command, Captain James Okonkwo, approached with a tablet. "Admiral, the enemy fleet numbers 197 vessels. We have confirmed their capabilities from the initial engagement. What did we learn? Their shields are designed for energy weapons. Plasma, lasers, particle beams. They have almost no defense against kinetic impacts at high velocity." Okonkwo smiled. They never expected anyone to hit them with metal. This was the key to humanity's strategy. The galaxy had developed along certain lines. Energy weapons were considered more advanced than kinetic weapons. Every species eventually abandoned projectiles in favor of plasma and lasers. Every species developed shields to stop energy weapons. Humanity had watched the galaxy from the shadows. They had studied the signals they intercepted. They had learned how their enemies fought. And they had realized something important. The galaxy had forgotten the simple power of mass times velocity. A tungsten rod, moving at 15% of light speed, carried more energy than most plasma weapons. And no energy shield in the galaxy could stop it. "What about their offensive capabilities?" Vasquez asked. "Plasma cannons and particle beams, standard for a hegemony fleet. Effective range of approximately 100,000 kilometers. Our ships can hit them from 10 times that distance. And their sensors? Designed to detect energy emissions, heat signatures, radiation. They have almost no ability to track a ship running cold." Vasquez felt the grim satisfaction she had been trained to feel. The enemy was powerful. Their ships were more advanced in many ways. But they had weaknesses. They had blind spots. And humanity had spent 60 years learning exactly where those blind spots were. The hegemony conquered through overwhelming force. They arrived with massive fleets. They demanded surrender. If surrender was refused, they destroyed everything until it was accepted. It was simple and effective. It had worked for 8,000 years, but it only worked against enemies who played by the same rules. It only worked against enemies who would meet them in open battle. Humanity would not meet them in open battle. Vasquez pulled up the tactical display showing the solar system. She began marking positions. Here, in the Oort cloud, stealth ships would wait in absolute darkness. Here, in the asteroid belt, autonomous drones would drift until they detected a target. Here, around the gas giants, defense platforms would create kill zones that no fleet could cross without losses. The enemy would come with 200 ships. Then they would come with 1,000. Then 10,000. It did not matter. Humanity would not try to match their numbers. Humanity would make them pay for every kilometer of space. They would bleed the enemy dry, one ship at a time, until the cost of conquest exceeded any possible gain. This was the doctrine of proportional response. For every human who died, 100 aliens would die. For every human ship destroyed, 10 alien ships would be destroyed. The math was simple. The galaxy had billions of ships. But eventually, even billions would not be enough. Okonkwo studied the display. Do you think they will give up, Admiral? Eventually? Vasquez considered the question. I do not know. But I know this. They have never fought an enemy like us. They have never fought an enemy who was already afraid. She looked at the stars on the display. Somewhere out there, the hegemony was gathering its forces. They thought they were preparing to crush a primitive species. They did not understand what they were really facing. Humanity had lived with the fear of extinction since the first human looked up at the night sky and wondered if they were alone. They had built civilizations knowing that disaster could end everything at any moment. Asteroid impacts, supervolcanoes, disease, war, humanity had always known that death was coming. That knowledge had not broken them. It had made them strong. It had made them careful. It had made them the most dangerous species the galaxy had ever produced. The hunters were coming, but the prey had teeth. The survivors of the Vareth fleet gathered in the shadow of Neptune. 73 ships remained from the original 200. The others drifted as debris in the Oort cloud, monuments to human patience and precision. Archon Salith stood on the bridge of the Wrath of Ages and tried to think. His fleet was broken. His crews were exhausted. Ammunition was running low. Shield generators were failing from constant stress. He needed time. Time to repair. Time to recover. Time to understand what he was fighting. He began composing a message to the High Council. He would request a full conquest fleet. Not 200 ships. 20,000. Enough to sweep through this system and overwhelm any defense the humans could create. It would take months for such a fleet to assemble. But there was no other option. He never finished the message. Far away, at the heart of the solar system, the Gladius array completed its final calculations. The targeting computers had been tracking the Vareth flagship for 3 days, measuring its exact position with instruments precise enough to count the atoms in a grain of sand. The particle accelerators had been charging for 18 hours, drawing power from solar collectors that covered an area larger than some moons. At exactly 1432 hours Earth Standard Time, the array fired. A beam of focused solar energy lanced across 4 billion kilometers of space. It moved at the speed of light. There was no warning. There was no time to react. Light and death arrived at the same moment. The beam struck the Wrath of Ages at the exact point where its main reactor connected to its power distribution network. This was not an accident. Human scientists had studied captured Vareth technology for months. They knew exactly where to hit. The reactor core breached. For a fraction of a second, the inside of the flagship became hotter than the surface of a star. The explosion consumed the ship instantly. But it did not stop there. 17 other ships were close enough to be caught in the blast. Their shields, already weakened from the journey through the Oort cloud, collapsed under the wave of energy and debris. They died in fire and light, their crews never knowing what had killed them. The surviving Varith ships scattered in panic. All formation was lost. Captains screamed for orders, but there was no one left to give them. Archon Salith was dead. His senior commanders were dead. The chain of command had been destroyed in a single instant, and then the human fleet appeared. They emerged from the darkness like wolves surrounding wounded prey. 212 warships, every vessel humanity had built in 60 years of preparation. They had been waiting behind the moons of Neptune, running cold, invisible to Varith sensors. Now they powered up their engines and moved into attack position. Admiral Elena Vasquez sat in the command chair of the Un's Defiance and felt the weight of the moment. This was it. Everything humanity had built, everything they had sacrificed, everything they had planned. It all came down to the next few minutes. She opened a channel to the enemy fleet. Her voice was calm, steady. She had practiced these words many times. This is Admiral Elena Vasquez of the United Nations Space Command. Your flagship is destroyed. Your commander is dead. Your fleet is surrounded. Your shields are failing and your weapons are depleted. You have two choices. She paused to let the words sink in. Choice 1. You surrender unconditionally. You will power down your weapons and shields. You will allow our boarding teams to take control of your vessels. You will be treated as prisoners of war according to the Geneva Conventions. You will not be harmed if you cooperate. Another pause. Choice 2. You refuse to surrender. In that case, we will destroy every single one of your ships. We will kill every single one of your crews. There will be no escape. There will be no mercy. There will be no survivors. She checked the tactical display. The human fleet had the Varith completely surrounded. Every angle was covered. Every escape route was blocked. You have 60 seconds to decide. The seconds ticked by. On the Varith ships, crews argued with each other. Some wanted to fight. They would rather die with honor than surrender to primitives. Others wanted to live. They had seen enough death in the Orc cloud. They had no desire to die for nothing. 43 ships powered down their weapons. Their captains transmitted surrender codes. They would be prisoners. 12 ships refused. They charged their weapons and accelerated toward the human line. They would die as warriors of the hegemony. Vasquez felt no anger toward them. She understood the choice they had made, but she could not allow them to harm her people. All batteries, she commanded. Fire. The human fleet unleashed its full power for the first time. Railguns accelerated tungsten projectiles to 15% of light speed. Each projectile carried enough energy to level a city. The Varith ships had no chance. The battle lasted 94 seconds. When it was over, 12 ships had been reduced to clouds of expanding gas and debris. Not a single human vessel had been scratched. Vasquez allowed herself a moment of relief. Then she began issuing orders. The prisoners needed to be secured. The captured ships needed to be studied. The debris fields needed to be searched for survivors. There was much work to do, but the hard part was over. She looked out at the stars through the view screen. Somewhere out there, the hegemony was waiting. They would learn what had happened here. They would learn that their fleet was destroyed. Their Archon was dead. Their soldiers were prisoners. What would they do next? Captain Okonkwo approached. Admiral, we have secured all surrendered vessels. No resistance from the prisoners. They seem almost relieved to be alive. They fought well, Vasquez said. They deserve respect. What happens now? Vasquez considered the question. The hegemony would not accept this defeat. They would send more ships, larger fleets, more powerful weapons. The war was not over. It was just beginning. But humanity had proven something today. They had proven that they could fight. They could win. They could stand against the greatest power in the galaxy and survive. "Now," she said, "we send a message. The hegemony needs to understand what they are dealing with. They need to understand what it means to fight mortals." She began composing the message that would change the galaxy forever. Archon Salith watched the reinforcement fleet emerge from faster-than-light travel. 200 warships, battlecruisers, destroyers, carriers filled with attack craft. It was the largest fleet sent against a single system in 300 years. The High Council had taken his warning seriously. Good. They would need every ship. Salith transferred his flag to the new flagship, the Wrath of Ages. It was twice the size of his previous vessel. Its weapons could crack a planet's crust. Its shields could withstand a direct hit from a star's corona. It was the most powerful warship in the hegemony fleet. He gathered his commanders in the tactical center. 20 officers, each commanding a division of the fleet. They looked confident, eager. They had heard about the loss of the 3 destroyers, but they dismissed it. A lucky ambush, nothing more. Now they had real numbers. Now they would crush these humans like every other species before them. "The human homeworld is our target," Salith began. "We will advance in standard formation. Shields interlocked. Weapons hot. Any human vessel that approaches will be destroyed immediately. There will be no negotiation, no mercy. We will reduce their planet to rubble and take the survivors as slaves. This system will serve as an example to any other species that considers defying the hegemony." The commanders agreed. The plan was simple. The plan had always worked. The fleet advanced. For the first 6 hours, nothing happened. The human system was quiet. Long-range sensors detected no movement, no energy signatures, no signs of the enemy fleet that had ambushed the first expedition. "Where are they?" one commander asked nervously. "They should be trying to stop us." "They are hiding," another replied. "They know they cannot win in open battle. They are cowards." Salith said nothing. He watched the empty space on his display and felt something he had not felt in centuries: doubt. The fleet passed the orbit of the outermost planet. They entered the region the humans called the Urt Cloud, a vast sphere of ice and rock surrounding the entire system. Billions of objects, most of them small, floating in eternal darkness. "Increase sensor range," Salith ordered. "Scan everything." The sensor officers worked their consoles. They found nothing but ice and rock. The fleet continued forward. Then the killing began. The first strike came from nowhere. 8 ships in the rear of the formation simply exploded. One moment they were there, shields active, weapons ready. The next moment they were debris clouds expanding into the void. No warning. No detected projectiles. Nothing. Salith spun to his sensor officer. "What happened?" "Unknown, Archon." "We detected no incoming fire. No energy signatures. Nothing." Alarms filled the command deck. Another strike. Another 6 ships destroyed. Then another. 12 ships. The attacks were coming from different directions. From everywhere at once. "Return fire," Salith screamed. "Target the source." "We cannot find the source, Archon. There is nothing on our sensors." Salith finally understood. The human ships were hiding among the ice and rock. They were running completely cold, producing no heat, no energy, nothing for Vera sensors to detect. They were invisible, and they were everywhere. A report came in from a surviving destroyer. Its captain's voice was filled with terror. "We found one, Archon. A human vessel. It was hidden inside a chunk of ice. It fired on us and then went dark again. We cannot track it." This was not a battle. This was a hunt. And the hegemony fleet was the prey. Over the next 72 hours, Salith watched his fleet die piece by piece. The humans never revealed themselves for more than a few seconds. They would drift in silence for hours, even days, waiting for the perfect moment. Then they would fire a single devastating volley and disappear back into the darkness. The Varith crews began to crack. Soldiers who had conquered worlds started seeing enemies in every shadow. They fired wildly at rocks that looked suspicious. They jumped at every sensor ghost. Sleep became impossible. The darkness was everywhere, and death could come from any direction at any moment. Salith tried everything. He ordered the fleet to spread out, to cover more area. The humans picked off isolated ships even more easily. He ordered the fleet to condense, to concentrate their firepower. The humans simply attacked from longer range, where the Varith weapons could not reach. He sent attack craft to sweep the area. They found nothing. The human ships had no heat signatures, no engine emissions, nothing to target. The attack craft burned through their fuel searching for ghosts, and then the pilots had to be recovered before they died in the cold. On the third day, something new happened. The fleet encountered mines. Thousands of them, scattered across millions of cubic kilometers. They were simple devices. A proximity sensor, a small thruster, and a high-explosive warhead. They cost almost nothing to produce. The humans had seeded the entire region with them. The fleet could not advance without hitting mines. They could not retreat without hitting mines. Every path was a potential death trap. Ships began to explode at random as they triggered invisible explosives. Salith looked at the casualty reports. 60 ships destroyed. 30 more damaged. He had not destroyed a single confirmed human vessel. He did not even know how many human ships were out there. The darkness hid everything. His second-in-command approached. Archon, the crews are losing morale. They are calling this place the Killing Dark. They say we are fighting ghosts. They are not ghosts, Salith replied. They are humans, and they are better at this than we are. He made a decision. The fleet would retreat to the inner system. They would regroup near the large planet the humans called Neptune. They would repair their damaged ships, restore their crew's morale, and try again. As the battered fleet limped toward Neptune, Salith composed another message to the High Council. This one was not about requesting reinforcements. This one was a warning. These humans understand war in a way we do not, he wrote. They do not seek glory. They do not seek honor. They seek only to kill us. And they are very, very good at it. They have turned their own weakness into strength. We cannot find them. We cannot hit them. We can only die in the darkness while they watch. He paused before adding the final line. I am beginning to think they wanted us to come. In the darkness of the Orc cloud, Admiral Vasquez received the report. The enemy fleet was moving inward, exactly as planned. They had taken 60% casualties from harassment alone. Their formation was broken. Their morale was shattered. Now it was time for Phase 3. All units, she transmitted, converge on the designated coordinates. Prepare for final engagement. The hunt was almost over. The High Council of the Varith Hegemony gathered in the Chamber of Eternal Rule. 12 beings sat around the table, carved from the heart of a dead star. They had ruled the galaxy for 8,000 years. They had never lost a war. They had never even been challenged. Now they sat in silence, watching a holographic display that showed the complete destruction of their fleet. The Grand Archon, oldest and most powerful of the council, spoke first. How is this possible? No one answered. There was no answer. Everything they believed about the universe had been proven wrong in the Soul system. 2 items had arrived from the human system, delivered by automated probe. The first item was the Wrath of Ages, or what remained of it. The humans had recovered the flagship's computer core from the debris. They had repaired it. They had loaded it with the complete sensor logs from the entire battle. Every ambush in the Orc cloud, every death in the killing dark, the final devastating strike that had destroyed the Archon and his command. Staff thought the humans wanted the Council to see everything. They wanted them to understand exactly what had happened. The second item was a message. The Grand Archon activated the recording. A human female appeared in the holographic display. She was small by Vereth standards, soft-skinned, fragile-looking. She should have seemed weak. She did not. "Leaders of the hegemony," the human began. "My name is Elena Vasquez. I speak for the United Nations of Earth and all of humanity. We have destroyed your fleet. We have captured your soldiers. We have killed your commander. We did this not because we wanted to, but because you gave us no choice." The council members shifted uncomfortably. They were not used to being addressed this way. They were not used to being addressed at all. Species spoke to them with fear and submission. This human spoke to them as an equal, perhaps as a superior. You came to our system with threats. You demanded our surrender. You planned to destroy our civilization and enslave our people. We could not allow this. We will never allow this. The human paused. Her eyes seemed to look directly at each council member in turn. We are humanity. We are mortal. We live briefly. We die easily. A single accident, a single disease, a single war could end our entire species. We have known this since we first looked up at the sky and understood how small we were. But this knowledge did not make us weak. It made us strong. It made us careful. It made us very, very good at surviving. For 10,000 years, we faced predators that were faster and stronger than us. We survived. We faced diseases that should have destroyed us. We survived. We faced wars and famines and disasters that should have ended our civilization. We survived. And we learned something important. We learned that the universe does not care if we live or die. The universe does not care if we are smart or stupid, brave or cowardly, good or evil. The universe only cares about one thing: results. The species that survives is not the strongest or the fastest or the most advanced. It is the species that adapts, the species that plans, the species that turns every weakness into a weapon. The human leaned forward. Her voice grew harder. You thought our technology was primitive. You were right. Our ships are slow. Our weapons are simple. We cannot travel faster than light. We cannot generate energy shields. By your standards, we are children playing with rocks. But we knew you were coming. We spent 60 years preparing for this moment. We built hidden fleets. We created weapons you had never seen. We studied your tactics and found your weaknesses. We turned our entire solar system into a trap. Your sensors cannot see ships that produce no heat. Your shields cannot stop metal moving at a fraction of light speed. Your tactics cannot adapt to an enemy that refuses to fight by your rules. You came here expecting a quick victory. You found a killing ground. The council members looked at each other. Some of them were angry. Some of them were afraid. None of them knew what to say. We do not want war, the human continued. We do not want to conquer your empire or destroy your civilization. We want to be left alone. We want to live in peace. We want to chart our own course among the stars without interference from those who would enslave us. But understand this, we will fight. We will always fight. You could send 1,000 fleets against us. You could send 1,000,000 ships. It does not matter. Every ship you send will be destroyed. Every soldier you send will die. We have planned for this. We have prepared for this. We have made war into a science. Your hegemony has conquered 12,000 species through fear and force. But you have never faced a species that was already afraid. We were born afraid. We have lived with the certainty of death since we first became aware. And we have transformed that fear into something you cannot defeat. The human stood straight. Her final words echoed through the chamber. We are mortals. We have made mortality into a weapon. Send your armadas. We will meet them with accuracy and strength. This is your only warning. Leave us in peace or face the consequences. The recording ended. The council sat in silence for a long time. Finally, the Grand Archon spoke. What do we do? The youngest member of the council, a strategist named Vela, answered. We have two options. We can send a full conquest fleet. 200,000 ships. Enough to overwhelm any defense they could create. The cost would be enormous, but we would win eventually. Eventually, another council member repeated. How long? How many ships would we lose? Tens of thousands, Vela admitted. Perhaps hundreds of thousands over decades of warfare. These humans fight like no species we have ever encountered. They do not value glory or honor. They value only survival. They will make us pay for every inch of space. And the second option? Viola hesitated. We leave them alone. We mark their system as forbidden territory. We pretend it does not exist. Surrender? The Grand Archon's voice was filled with disgust. The hegemony does not surrender. The hegemony does not retreat. With respect, Grand Archon, the hegemony has never faced an enemy like this. The cost of conquest would be higher than any benefit we could gain. These humans have nothing we need. Their space is far from our core territories. The logical choice is to avoid them entirely. The debate lasted for 3 days. In the end, logic won over pride. The hegemony issued a decree. The Sol system was to be classified as a forbidden zone. No Varith vessel was to approach within 100 light years. All records of the system would be sealed. The humans would be left alone. On every star chart in the hegemony, the Sol system received a new designation. A simple warning that would be passed down for generations. Here dwell mortals. Do not disturb. On Earth. Admiral Vasquez received the news of the hegemony's decision. She allowed herself a moment of celebration with her officers. They had done it. They had faced the greatest power in the galaxy and won. But she knew the truth. The hegemony was not the only threat in the galaxy. There were others out there. Other empires. Other predators. The universe was vast and dangerous, and humanity had just announced its presence in the loudest possible way. The war with the hegemony was over. But humanity's struggle was just beginning. She looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, other species were listening. Other civilizations were watching. They had heard the message. They knew what humanity could do. Let them come, Vasquez thought. Let them all come. We will be ready. Mortals always were.